Morning, Chair, members of the Resource and Development Committee, those online and those here in person. My name is Rodney Tahi. I'm the Legislative Advisor for Resource and Development Committee. I'm Kia'ani and Senjikine, and I'm originally from Steamboat, Arizona. Back to you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Tahi. Ms. Noto.
Good morning, honorable members. My name is Bobby Nota. I'm Legislative Secretary 3 with Council Delegates Office. Claims are Totoni, Torachitni, Kitlachitni, and Matuskishni.
Thank you. Ms. Khan.
Oh, good morning. Good morning. Yad Ed so the Neshik A. Yad Ed Chairman Nez, Do Resources and Development Committee members, Dano Klinigi. Ado, thank you so much for that beautiful prayer, Mr. Delegate Freeland. It always warms my heart to hear such beautiful, heartfelt words said with truth and sincerity. J. Mariana Khan, Dashijine, Dona and Shinigi A. Toy here, cleaning Mishne, Ahi Bashish Chin, Ashche, Dashiche, Sanjakina, Dashanala, Akot our son Mishne. Good morning, one and all, and I shall be listening from Window Rock. Thank you.
Honorable Herman Daniels.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, colleagues. Yeah, Kodo, Salia, Kodo, sort of the Bahin, Digi, I see by here, Hilne Kodo, Adonana Kodo, and then give me Shafti, the Oyana, Mr. Hanov and Benda, Adonana Kodo, Herman Daniels Jr. I don't know, Slinigate, but Tani, Kilatsini, that's J, as Cardboard, that's another, boy here, Pliny, that should say. I don't know, the Fan or Z. That's a big banasness. Or that is a doubt of $8, so $10. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Daniels. Do we have Honorable Kealan Begay Jr. on the call? Honorable Vice Chair Walker. I did see Kealan on the call. He must have got knocked off. From Land Department, Mr. Halona.
Yate Pensk Eros ne, which is that Mike Halona that's in it. Do but an slow shin, but it's shin to and that's another key on it that should say what I mentioned. Late hot and what Jada or I say, already which is never care about a high yard, we get that stage of it. Yeah.
Thank you. Department of Agriculture, Mr. Watchman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and also members of committee, audience, people. Thank you for the opportunity. Leo Watchman Jr. and Chef Daisuke and Chef Tohana Basishin, Department of Agriculture Manager. Thank you.
Next.
Hello, Yat Ebene, Shay, Natalia, Robin, Sherman, Yanishef, Bilagana Nishle, Hajgahat Zohibashichin, Bilagana Dashache, Nakaidana Dashanella. Good morning, everyone. My name is Natalia. I'm here with Department of Agriculture.
Good morning. Kim Johnson Ninja, Tora Jane Ninja, K Ani Bashichin, Touched in Asia Che, Honagahni Asianella. I work for Department of Agriculture, Senior Extension Agent. Thank you.
Yeah, they have been Ray Castillo. Atagaho, Zandi Cast, and they were talking cleaning a creep in the instead on the Nanished as Hachini, but it's chains and the Jane that should say, oh, no, Gahni, that's another cat.
Yananate, yeah, but I leadership meeting that on the RDC, Shea, Aaron Simonson in Shea, Hula Shichat as a dog, and the Chishit and yeah, and it Lenos, my son, Arash, my Benada, so the Bashan change it. I wrote the Taki on it, I should say, I wrote Benada, so they national in the hard rock. Settle don't down, I wrote the Babinal sauce. You couldn't. Ja, det är Ben Rolling Small Canyon, nota kachi in shlon ashi bashin. This lani da shi che tapa he da shin nale. Shantoro chapter president Shanto community governance. Although Bevan, I don't see it previous to my my official job now. Good morning. Chiga.
Yat pension and nostro. Aroscation na kwa yahaki. Shay Morgan Yazdi and she and teach to chapter do that scene do. Other grades and officials that hapa in the scene do she was just chain. So not Jenny, it does it say. Don't I couldn't it does another.
Good morning. Shay, Julie Harding, she, Botanation, Tobamba, she, Pachini. I should check what it even the Shinam. Now for Hopi Lankin, she banash. Felt a benefit.
Yat ben nostro. She ya Al words that's a gene. We whippoorwill nende ari grazing official. To the closet ne she do she that's a je. Hoch ya that's not to go ahead lini that's a che. Good etchine koko. Ado enta ya endeta the first time official. Nenigi a hot echo.
Yat Benishnazanis, Cheya Marsha Grayazinishia. I'm from the Shanto Community Governance. I'm the Vice President, and I'm looking forward to the presentation today.
Yate, Jay Irvin Chin, I work for Department of Justice. I work with Veronica Blackhat. So today I'm going to be here with you, and I appreciate being here. Thank you, Kehat. I forgot my clan. My clan is Total Konjan Shinido. Tuna Jini Bashin, Basjini, that's a Chedo, Kia Ani, that's another. Thank you.
Yat Benish eight here, Sam Unisha, organization, the Bethlehem, Bushes Chin, Tobahan, Dashe, Honak, Ni Dashanella. I work for the Navajo Nation Department of Agriculture as an extension agent.
Good morning. She Robert Salabai, that she chose you. Nanesh as a touch sheet in Shido to the cheating that she's at that and on Tenjikin that she not Ginny that she null here on it and no shot shinny that they give out okay today are they chapter officer. I'm interested in your grazing permit issues and discussions. Thank you.
Yat bin shidna asnan sozon. Yat bin she ya Jimmy her and she. Nugget just Jimmy Gare, Holgede, my Sonachi, Holgede Are, she has ne Are Chishike. Did the don and Schlinge, Tohan and Schlin, Aron the Torch in Mashin, and Dashin Shedate. Scott Dashin, Arnold at good morning. Aro Panashai, not Ani Panschlin, even just Jimbo Gare. Like Mesa, forcefully, because the take about how some opinion on the was 32 hot that is doing a hot none of the was 32 whippoorwill correction. Yeah, only Tanianito. This is important meeting for us. Party permit. Yeah, on solar showers. I thank you. We have
Yat Benano, Shay, Fern Benalion, she. The sheet trained it, not shot for the train in Shlon talk, and a bushes chain. But I need a shade, can the chini, the shanality, our son, Shado. Black Mesa Review Board Vice President Nishle Ado, Navajo County Board of Supervisor, District One. Esto, ako di ba Hanson ko, Constantly chapters. I think most all of them are affected by the NPL issues. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have on the call with us from BIA, Ms. Angela Arviso.
Good morning, and Yad Ebene, Angela Urbiso, the Deputy Regional Director for Trust Services, BIA Navajo Region. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Kelvin Curley.
Good morning, Calvert Curley, Natural Resources, Navajo Region. Yeah, they've been.
Thank you. Ms. Cheryl Curley from BIA also.
Yat Bene. Good morning, RDC Chairman, RDC members, Navajo Nation leadership. Cheryl Curley, BIA Tribal Operations Specialist Liaison. Yeah.
Thank you. LDA, LC Small Canyon. None. Andrea Dawes.
Yate, Andrea Dazinchia, Ipitoni Shlodo, Kia Ani Bashichin, 100 Dashichedo, Sitnajini Dashinale. I am the chapter manager here in Broadway Gap and Western Agency. And thank you for the invite for the meeting. And I look forward to hearing, learning a lot of information today. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anybody on the call that wishes to introduce themselves may do so at this time.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Dorothy Lee. I am from Broadway Gap chapter president. My kinds are Ahmed Lashter, Anilahni Bashashin, Bipetone, Dashache Dona, Nashtarko behind the Chanel, Dit Egoya, a son and Shni Auto Shehak, the invite Auto, by Edith Le Comsite leases all land permit, Ada Aya, Budish also, but this isn't so. Log on Isha, a Shehak. Auto, thank you for the beautiful prayer this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Yate Penishing at Mr. Chairman, Rick Nez.
Yes, introduce yourself.
Yate Penishing at this Amos Johnson, BIA. Banash Lebak about Sunday. Slinigates and Genie Slot Talk and Buses Chain to the Genie does another talk a clean age that Ecoyat Asian and other contractors in Bay Citizen Behau. See, don't Johnny. I won't saw it. Yeah.
Yeah. Next. Next.
Good morning. Good morning. Yat Ebene. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, Yat Ebene. Nant Anu Sliniki. Say Ya Gloria Johns. That's a Jane. I'm the legislative district assistant working with Delegate Jimmy Yellowhair. She hinsklet the son that's a on the thought as a che Hanaga National called or it's done in Doyat it was in Becha out the door in the Shikano Clinic a higi bake ego or equate a try ED thing. Yat it all here.
Thank you. Next.
Good morning. My name is Carolyn McGay. I am the wildlife biologist with Navajo Fish and Wildlife. And I've also been helping on the reviews for the grazing and ALUP process.
Thank you. Next. None. Akushila. Kashino Snanadole. Dr. Yellowman. Yatehipene. Okay, Nakainya Haki. I believe there's a microphone over there. If you don't mind introducing yourself here this morning.
Good morning. That was gonna sneak in the back and in the back. Good morning, Chair Nez, honorable members of RDC, Arokon, Shinantani, Jimmy, Delegate Jimmy Yellowhair. And staff, maybe there's staff on the line. Staff, chapter staff, and Department of Division of Natural Resources out there. Shay Pearl Yellowman, Shea Adon Schlinigi, Shay Tsanabithin, Schlindel, Bizafana Bushes Chin, Hobahanda Shiche, Ado Hanala Nate the Chanela. So I just want to listen in for a few minutes. We're also meeting next door with President and Public Safety next door. And then we had our division directors meeting yesterday and then early this morning. So a lot of meetings going on here. So a lot of good people here at Twin Arrows. So yeah.
Akushila Dr. Yellowman. Kache Kronos Nanadole. Tide. Agenda Hitaros of Sigi. Yaha na Kikone Baka number 2 on the agenda. Purpose of our leadership meeting today. Ado Mr. Tahi, could you give them the microphone right here so they can introduce themselves? I apologize. Shahne I dance and I heard settle don't you so.
Yate, Chevy got the Queen Camilla. He owns it myself. Out there. The senior on the instant fortune got his tune, saying that it say, that's two, that's another.
She's the first one that got that original grazing permit, the only one in Pinion. Yat Eshe Bessie Ellen, that's Janet. Look at an end show, my diskin, Bashin, 400, that's a shade, touching, than none that's Shironi. Oh, you shall chin look at one Sando, what's on that?
Yat Benny Shay Ramona Nelwood in Shia, although it's on the ensign, look at the ensign. Although Shishit in there, it was chindo, touching that's a chain, I couldn't it doesn't know. But those shut in the need of Mr. Daniel Shigashin, Mr. Nez, Shigas, Mr. Freeland, Tele, and then Mr. Stewart, Shigashin, so forth ahead.
I can't. Sitsile. Mr. Ness, the Bishma Sana Arit Naito Tanigi. Yego Iba Hasan to see you again. Donana Sato, Mr. Daniel Harishi had Naitza called Hasan. Shading late didn't sa then as the Hodga Adet Nasha. Nana and that na be band o nini ajugo kehashte. Ado shiji ya procedure in shia. Shishit nansle. Ashi e bashis chain. Nana haskan zo ya dashichedo kia an edishinal. Ko keha ko nada house aki.
Good morning, everyone. Honorable
Chairman, members of RDC, everybody here. My name is Larson Utili. Staff member at Navajo Nation Department of Agriculture here. So, yeah, they've been here.
Good morning. Yeah, Lankwe, Shao, Agi. Ade, Nazo Carnation and President, honorable members of the RDC, Shea, Nare, Shantode, Helen and Re Persiti and Aho, Liehede, Ado, Kwajo and Re chapter. Shut up, which is a NPL, so that's why I'm here. Ado, College not so much in Basis Changes Land, that she, that she national. Thank you.
Akushila ke kashi cho ke da hasil zido ke na khai so khegi na ge be ke ba ho chan de la neit le yo al kanan khachiya na le a de shama beshi ke dishe o on hol tha aren hesta na tin ten yen khana ta ar Percy hard rock oist en no kare ziln sada na da na kohara like set elansen or at it na hanal tlashe kwage yanda ke Mr. Percy Deal nantan khanya hagi nantan do Mr. Stanley Ozzy kashe karo khada hadi tlasto chere benige tlani kliniki kwage di benebige na kegone agenda and Lenigi purpose of leadership meeting resource and development committee will be conducting a leadership meeting with the Division of Natural Resources, Navajo Nation Land Department, Department of Agriculture, Department of Fish and Wildlife, Department of Justice Natural Resources Unit, and U.S. Department of Interior BIA to discuss the canceled grazing permits in the Navajo partitioned land area NPL. Ako kui beneges ani lenegi yaha dite podo batra eki kui nabikia dilke benege dite nege NPL holge go Navajo partitioned land has anje dite the bebanal source bera hodlonegi betra bekenda ishtishende Adok a corona sto a hit edo le gishin penige a codin hitspehus and or less benige sanit lenigi a codishi hot edo le just a reminder to everybody Arnold Skokonta Naso Tanigi we are only allowed 31 people in this room. So we're expecting 3 committee members there. If they come in and we have more than 31, we would like to respectfully ask one of you, 2, 3 of you to leave and wait outside. Presentation and discussions. Department of Interior, BIA, Bureau of Indian Affairs, Navajo Regional Office on the Navajo partitioned land, grazing permits and transfer agreement and cancellation. Koroshna Hanoya, BIA, Konshni Tratasota. Nehitatodo da sota. Then that so gizigishi koron hadet ot art argent hinanish ot inigi BIA kodo agenda shin hapalo a koado shin hilchihodo art. So you have the floor, BIA. Dr. Curley.
Good morning. Thank you very much. I'd like to give an opportunity for our Deputy Regional Director, if she has anything to present before we.
Go ahead.
Good morning, and yeah, Dave, and again, this is Angela Arviso, and thank you to all the chairman Nez and to the committee and to all the members and the staff that are available there. I am here on behalf of the regional director, Gregory Mahoja, and I will turn it over to Dr. Curley. Thank you.
With that, thank you very much, Chairman McNez and members of the Resources Development Committee. I'd like to see if I can share a screen here. Okay, do you guys see that?
You may proceed, Dr. Curley.
Okay, thank you very much. You see the first slide there, then the second slide here, I do have a copy of a slide of the NPL precincts with the range units, precinct 1, precinct 2, 3, and the locations of the range units within each precinct for your information. We want to
Dr.
give you
Curley?
Yes.
Could you turn up the volume so we could hear you? We could barely hear you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Again, I'll get closer to the mic. I have on the presentation right now, I do have a copy of the NPL precincts with range units. And we have precinct 1, 2, and 3. And basically, we will be providing you an update on the status of the grazing permits for NPL and where we were at. So I wanted to provide this presentation again, just to remind everyone out there the status of our carrying capacity and stocking rate, and how we decided and why it was determined to reissue grazing permits at 10 sheep units. And that is, of course, because of the fact that the forage was not available at the time when we did our inventory. Carrying capacity was determined, and based on our analysis, 10 sheep units were determined. So that was the initial process that we went through. We first of all analyzed the range inventory information and determined that 10 sheep units would suffice for grazing permits to be reissued on NPL. And according to 25 CFR 161.302, how BIA sets the stock or the sheep units year round, we have 25 CFR 0.302 that sets that minimum allowed sheep units. So based on our analysis, it was determined that 10 sheep units would be used. Shortly after that, BIA proposed the 10 sheep units to the Navajo Nation. Navajo Nation concurred in the 10 sheep units, and that's how we were able to reissue under 25 CFR 161 under phase 1. BIA was responsible to reissue 50 under the living category. So as a result of that, we went through a series of steps prior to BIA reissuing the permit. The BIA worked closely with the Navajo Nation grazing officials and also the Resource Development Committee. And a resolution was developed based off of meetings with the Navajo Nation and Resource Development Committee. And that resolution was RDC CMA-27-18 on the concurrence of carrying capacity under 25 CFR, subsection 161.204. And that was done March 21st, 2018. And as you can see, that was completed if you take a look at the Gantt chart here, that was blacked out and that determines when it was completed. Step-by-step activities were conducted. We were on a strict timeline with reissuance of the grazing permit under 25 CFR 161. So all the way up to the time when it was reissued, as you can see, we went by the timelines. So step 1, 2, 3, Navajo Nation Department of Agriculture requested for NPL grazing permit and listing by letter, and that's when that's initiated the other process again. So BIA provided the cancel grazing permit list to the Navajo Nation Department of Agriculture. That's step number 4. That happened in August of 2018. 90 days after that, the Navajo Nation reviewed the list. A grazing committee to review the list and recommend to RDC based on the Navajo Nation eligibility. That also happened from September through November of 2018. So as you can see, we continue to move forward to the phase 1, and we had completed reissuing 50 grazing permits based off of the steps that were identified in 161. So as of today, according to we have approximately 28 grazing permits that were reissued, actually handed back to permittees out there out of the 50. So that is currently the status of our efforts in reissuing the grazing permits under phase 1. And that was our process in getting the permits back up. So now under phase 2 is a process that was developed by the Navajo Nation according to RDC resolution, and that's where the Navajo Nation can explain or probably give us an update where they're at with that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Curley. Ms. Arvizo, would you like to add anything?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Amos Johnson, would you like to add anything?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Not at this time. I'm going to wait till later on if there's any questions, but Mr. Curley covered just about everything. Thank you.
Honorable members of RDC, do you have any comments or questions? Honorable, thank you. Thank you, Honorable Jimmy Yellow Hair, for being here with us today. The kuja aja peshba sa anaban litigation corona at
Because Honorable Rickness, Kodor, Habi Wati, Kodor Papa Hunt. Permit where it's been almost probably 50 years now. These permit has been canceled. I always think this way. Why we have been target. You lot even in permit via it's not we hat ishbenina. Siego area. Okay, not that's the open. Kaya he got ado is on about it. Ada pillow. Yo in that still the nepa bulldozer because that has kai. Aro the neta nago. Konza the whole just the pebinal sauce then. Aton hitana nita. Ako. These all said then the nahot nanat at 2018 at the pebinal sauce. There's not that yeah. There's on each that then vegetation is getting really poor. No, what ego? Kahun that the whole just thought ego now, but ba hol justi in nanigin hildi bebenal sos Diego Benich na hot pia oyo na hotel ze shit nepa pansas kes Diego na sos da halona the neta peha o hayu pahata hasnidot kadi second generation hol just the neta penal sos betrando ne sishin takoshi pahont probate case and lead she could open son al sos bichun dol Nathanson na dan ni shida bia nana ne dan ni nana catol de vegetation it data usta that not so ni chon that dol ni kun de kadesio das ni copia ya sigego pa na hoto zi koti kat na hon aguna hol jish na sos pa sa ta hal doniki isik hon za da hol jish the na o yipe na pa hasti shil na hot it never not an in shlengi ako sit filo at kilo indo le ako dina sos na niniki ya tsede yogo ya eho ado pa sa hal dona the net is at a b has nele kashita but so ke eta eshe aje hajob tkhando nihen santish kodorontra ba yashti ole shil yat tion hona tlagi bia arona begi hajot ol nit sitana sos betrando ne permit John lede khana khaya ta pesa sa ana ya ita ya go ya Koto Navajo Commission, where we had an orientation ban si not sauce. So that I sago ni a piece sauce any a piner piece in Gila. A co ed in hichitish transortish. Thank you for the Navajo Nation Agriculture, Mr. Watchman. Thank you being here. Yes, is Kodona behas on in Nila. Am I eligible to receive a grazing permit? This is a question that was made the Nebuchadnezzar regarding relocatees. Nothiniki have a JUA home. The Pawan Yayaki, a Koti parents permit, etc. According to PL 3531 section 14. Those that receive benefit as relocates or not eligible for a grazing permit. Did XPL de ya or not PL de ya or now hot ida no one hata liaki 1 acres ni tras ni ha one. So they gotta be to PRA a here once about stidole belora shlai o shaba honosna tibas ani bikahin strako the koti la ba yasti shitene na sos a kondiyati koche XPL yita has nani has ani tsudato to hajora tapi zodatan Jonle XPLJA Bashatalia. There's already a policy, there's already there. XPL Bikat Inigi Korod Nesya Iyani Hosti Dikya in now. Joe are a hot nata asleep. Ako need to speed up. One dotly. Ere Yasibin Yania Shanat Arno Seni Kia Korik the hot in I saw Tony. Let's get the permit return back to our people up here. If you are really concerned about it, any nas, not go out killing any nuts eat lip killing any a hot shan, big Navajo, Kalila ben here in here, if in the yep from XPL permit nas like once about her state or let's get busy and take care of this once and for all. Yeah, once at all, Honorable Rick Naz, thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Yellow Hair, for your concern and also your statement. for the people within Navajo partition line area. Let me go back to Dr. Curley, your response, sir. Dr. Curley.
Okay, thank you. Chairperson Rick Nez and members of the Resources Development Committee. Although here, Delegate Yellow here, Nathan, Kidigi. And media, under phase one, under 25 CFR. Under 25 CFR 161, the reissuance of grazing permit via a bedate in here. BIA bedate according to 25 CFR 161. Kodobanosi Tamigi 50 sheep units. Is that say the Nusni Agi ADGA Egisin Hidati under phase one. A 25 CFR 161 the car. Although at phase two on the Higi airship process earlier. That process a Navajo Nation Hagila. He hut the Bevanat sauce, it's on the Hastla. Kutaba Nahito Miss Assign is the Nigo Yokedi, Tafataba Nahito Miss Hoto need. Edo Bia A. He has only the Edo Bia A has on views, Doctor Edo 161 views, Doctor. A Navajo Nation Resource and Development Committee, a resolution be stuck. A resolution be stuck of a cow to a nego a under phase two, a Navajo Nation debate. A call a grazing official, a separate of that. Taylor airship process. Again, is source. Now, a outlays or mitigation the outlays of Ponkashi grazing permit that they also society by family. A Vida Yosoto list of the dog niche. On in the Hastada for the airship process, RDC Hedila. A which is never the Neda Hikali as a family. Kashi case Hashing Kadako, so a grazing permit. So even now, it's not under phase two. So quite chief, but after outsourcing and lineage grazing committee, Department of Agriculture, after body for standing to 100 later. Had a RDC resolution to get outsourced with and how the IP stock. Department of Agriculture, the date on it. Division of Natural Resources, a large as a Tahagi director, the date on it. Committee established that door needs to water resource. The creation to have a resolution to have a car. Aja, Hashins hold just a cotobia, a cotonut, just by the height niche upon the after ardent when a la a list a home on that sort of a quite hold just a quiet but not a kid. Oil via a papa, then I had them. And he could be a so nasi under 161. The authority that we have upon the Karnaho just the airship process. Okwagi just that process is the Navajo Nation process. Okwagi she denied it all kitchen. So has it or the
Akushila, Dr. Curley, for your presentation and response. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and move down to B. And then after that, we'll go ahead and have some more discussions on this. So presentation and discussion by the Division of Natural Resources and Department of Agriculture. 638 grazing permits for the Navajo partition lands area and possibility of renewal. So Mr. Watchman you have the floor, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I guess in terms of the agenda, uh, first of all, thank you for the opportunity. You might be maybe aware of there has been some change in leadership within natural resources. Ms. Bicta Becker is now our executive director under natural resources. Prior, our former director had entertained the idea of the possibility of 638ing. Since that time, we have not discussed that with our current leadership, whether that would be the choice. But for discussion's sake, the 638 was one of the ideas thought of, and it's always been there as a part of the opportunity for Navajo Nation. But for statehood, I know that Dr. Curley had mentioned a number of things to where we're at this point. We do have a chronological review, if the chairman would like to entertain that. Seems that each time when we meet, there's always questions that go back in history on how to deal or how things were dealt with. There's a little more dialogue to the 10 sheep units. There's also a little more dialogue to why, say, like the IGR made provided legislation through our process and Navajo Nation. Also what the CFR means and how our interpretation. So with stating that, the thought of 638, again, there is a portion of 638 within the MPL, which is deals with water. And a lot of the challenges with water, it comes back to the nation, but the VIA runs and has that contracted out. So a lot of times when we're getting into requests or needs, at times we say, and from Navajo, I will be kind of speaking for water resources under Navajo, but they handle those water needs under a contract. It's not part of our overall budget. So with Navajo Nation, that's just an example. I could also say that whether my opinion is that has been good process under that format, but then again, if we were to take on the whole initiative, I think that's really the question, whether we would be able to issue permits. The thought of 638ing is not, I think it's more a frustration. It was mentioned earlier by Delegate Yellow Hair, 50 years, and for 50 years, we've been unable to move forward under a process in which the federal government has provided, and also our leadership going back several years has agreed to. So, Mr. Chairman, I guess the other thoughts is a compact, entering into a compact other than a 638. It has similarities, but it has a more of a fast track or more an autonomy to the contractee under a compact versus 638. I think under self-determination, the 638 has been available since the 90s. It was really advocated in the 90s, but very few of our programs, our special natural resource, has not taken advantage of that. There are currently some programs under natural resource that have 638 capacity, forestry, and also an impact here would be some of the environmental, I guess, studies or the actions taken under NEPA and how we monitor that. So moving forward, Mr. Chair, the presentation, I wasn't familiar with having a direct presentation. I probably wouldn't be in line because I have new leadership, whether they want to move forward on the 638ing idea. But we had recommended from the Department of Agriculture compacting or this declaring I guess a shift, a new direction. I believe under today's times, there's probably some other ways to look at moving and providing leadership and also a permit or say a agreement with producers. This may be a little forward, but the forward thing about it is that, and I'll just say this, hopefully be quoted at some point that I repeated it again. This process in which the Bureau has provided to Navajo is simply not working. And we have been toying with this diligently as a directive for about 8 years now from RDC. To this point, we've only been able to issue 26 permits. of the 111 or 1,100 roughly. And if we look at this timeline, I don't know if we're going to even get there in another 30 years. You know, it's already been 8 years. We only issued 26. The application, yes, is compact, or even telling the Bureau that you can keep your permit and we'll develop our own is a possibility. And I say this because not say for frustration, but the time lapse is just been too long for us to catch up. I believe until about 2 or 3 weeks ago, it was only 8 permits. The challenge with the process right now is that you have to be compliant. But keeping in mind, maybe we have to look at it from a different perspective. Maybe let's work on the other 90% that we're not even impacting because they're not even part of this process. So what I'm referring to is the producers out there. We're not even addressing the 90%, and this 26 or 50 is a very small number of the 1,000 former permit holders, as well as over 40 years of producers that are now there. So again, Mr. Chairman, the thinking of compact has its process. First is notifying the Bureau that this is our intent, and then they respond back. It's almost similar to 638, but there's a more of a streamlined process. So basically, we're saying we want to take over this activity. But further, some of the presentations, I simply think that we were not, even though it sounds wonderful in the presentations, and we've been a part of that nomination, it doesn't look too good on horizon to answer questions moving forward. And I say this from a standpoint, and seeing that this ball got rolling in the past 4 years, as you may be aware of, as taking leadership here, we were given directives, and this is our result after 4 years. And again, the governmental bureaucracy or the willingness for participation is some of the challenges because the current CFR doesn't fit everyone. And it leaves a lot of people in the same situation or even a worse situation where there's not even a light at the end of the tunnel. They will not receive a permit. But they've been living there for over 40 years in that same capacity, and their family's been living there throughout this whole process. So just kind of looking at from our perspective, Mr. Chair, and trying to provide some direction moving forward. Yes, one is the compact, but also looking back at history to where things are started. Also some missed opportunities we may have to look back at again. I directed my team to go back and do a chronological review, going back to the conception of a permit on nomination, as well as some of the directors given, and also the number of permit holders. Example, Mr. Chair, that we didn't really address, and it has to go back and maybe revisit when we talk about the 10 sheep units. The 10 sheep units is based on scientific review under a study, but it also measures the number of permits were canceled to give that equation. But at the end, I don't think we're going to reissue 1,100 permits. It's probably going to be around 400. So if you do quick math, there may be an increase in the permit itself just by that. But we're trying to qualify or disqualify the 1,100 to an actual number. So that's the challenge. And what the scientific approach in which we've been following, it sits on 10 sheep units. However, if you look at some of the permits of the potential to be reissued, a lot of them are under 50 sheep units. So almost 50% are under 50 sheep units. Yet, we're sitting here saying we're going to raise to 50, but the original permit didn't even go to 50. So potentially 100 plus permit holders would have an increase from their original amount. Some of those are, just as you look at the numbers. So again, the legislation may be arbitrarial because of not really looking at it through and through. Again, the nomination was involved as a compromise to 10 sheep units. But it's sitting here and also our team, my team, looking at some of the challenge we have moving forward. Again, compact might be one, but also looking at maybe issuing our own permit, whether it be under a operator's agreement, to where we can capture all the permittees that are the producers, not permittees, the producers. And that's where a lot of the folks are maybe here because they're left out in the phase 1, phase 2, and even perhaps phase 3. So going back, there was a directive given about 4 years ago to bring and issue permits within a year's time. That didn't happen, unfortunately, because of NEPA, that being a process, a requirement under a federal action, which is issuing a permit is a federal action. That also applies to Big Navajo. So Big Navajo also has a sleeping giant as well. There is permits that have not been reissued for 8 years now. So we're 32 years away from the same problem on Big Navajo, as we haven't issued those permits that are follow the process. So a lot of dialogue here, Mr. Chair. We do have, if wanting to, we do have a chronological side just to give a scenario. I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with what has all happened on NPL. Sometimes it's hard to answer things when there's a lot of history. And I am a part of that history, as well as my team, as well as your predecessors with the resource committee, as well as yourselves moving forward. But I just wanted to, instead of getting into like a disagreement, but there was leadership decisions made by resource committee prior, and it affects what is happening now. I guess when I say arbitrarial, it's not, there was decisions were made and under whatever arguments or whatever presentations at that time, but there's new times ahead. So that places a burden on ourselves here, as well as some of the folks that are impacted, the potential permit holders or the permit holder herself on the end of this table. So, Mr. Chair, in reference to some of the dialogue that's already been stated, I don't disagree with what BIA has reported on. I just know that it's not timely, and that's the challenge right now, because there used to be 50 living, now there's less than that. Just above 40 that are living. The 26 that were reissued to the living, I think they've used the process to transfer on. So that's something that it's good. But as we move and look at something that's could be year, that's going to be a challenge, because the second process, the airship, and just a little bit of understanding what airship means is that one of the biggest reasons why these permits were never issued is because of probate. Navajo Nation has a probate avenue when it comes to property, but this is a permit that was canceled, should not have been a part of probate, but yet the challenge from, I guess, the Navajo side and representing is that they needed to find a mechanism that was consistent with probating. So that's where the airship came in. But the airship also took an agreement. So probate is sort of an agreement and then a judgment, but the airship itself is just the family is agreeing to have a producer be the permit E. If they disagree, then it goes back to a permit process. I mean, a probate process. It's the same as it on Big Navajo. So those are challenges that the third tier will take a while. And then when it gets to the fourth tier, where whatever's available could be reissued to a permit holder at that time. And that could take years. It's being realistic about it. It's optimistic to say, and these processes are in line, but there is a timeline in which we're looking several years out to fully provide the permits to anyone who was eligible under what phase. So, Mr. Chair, in reference to however we go the 638, the compact, or even reissuing ourselves, there was an attempt around 2012, 2013, to take over the permitting process. But the challenges then were capacity and also the target. This had not been, I guess the numerations to eligibility, everything had not been completed. As part of using who was canceled, the numeration. So as we see today, there's probably a better outlook if we were to look at compacting, because we know the permit holders, potential permit holders, as well as the land status, the studies that are up to date, most recent, but those only have a 10-year window. So as the more and more we do not move forward, some of the CFR requirements will lapse. So Mr. Chair, in reference to the committee here, and also the audience, my team has a sort of a history, whether we have time or not to go back over that, but there's some important information that's in there that maybe this leadership, this team could look at and say, maybe we should go back to this point in time and take a look at that. Maybe it might be an advantage, like I was mentioning, the opportunity regarding 1990, where 638 was a mandate but never moved forward, or 2018 when there was an opportunity to look at directing more of the monies compact for MPL. So, Mr. Chair, I stand for questions. If there are no questions, then if the opportunity, I'd like to just get some time to Ms. Johnson and Mr. Castillo, Ms. Robbins, if possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Watchman, go ahead and give it to your team so they can add to the presentation from Department of Agriculture.
Give us a few moments here. We'll put the presentation up.
Shanant Arnothenegi Aroshan Queen Nakahiso Craigie the Koro Navajo partition land Wilgego Arjun Nikhilhas Arjudi grazing permitigi Net Nil Sos Door Nes Nagot Edapakagi Kait Arlet de Honadne Gosh Bahonat Zash Latinja Patnigo E Koroshan Shanant An Lenegi Honorable Jimmy Yellow here. Shabe Dunhadit Ahibahatalia Ako Aro Baj Bahal Jishigis Di de Hut Anabikia deal Tito Hai Kate Arle Ha Ahort Tito Bohone Zash Behas Ani Laha in Nage Washington because Ara Bureau of Indian Affairs Ado Anhitagahort Zanja Nikitananda Nishki Department of Agriculture at the Department of Justice because Aja ended the Fish and Wildlife Aja Bebehas Ani and Nashigila Haila Daradon Nilto Hait Ego Lae Hati Kodo Shanant Ein Lenny Besh Bahas Anina Edel Kiko Ena Ito Late a Kokoro here Dr. Curlin Hitla Hassan Leto Mr. Watchman Kashe Koro but it ought a Koti Red Ice not Giti Hone at Hatin do Arsago Honel Jacobe Hoti Tahnahau town hit on Nidigipenina a Adaquia Honel at Ahnahasit a Kobo Balahos Leo Shansa ordered on the Abigato late corrosion and Tragway or Rembes or Jahagishi Hodino then he jeto le so did you have put abahash jeto Mr. Castillo? You have the floor, sir.
Yeah, no, no, no. Yeah, that's so happy. Yeah, slide, next slide, please. On later, the Kodo, Mr. Yellow here, yeah, Z A, on later, yeah, Hashil, so unfitted hits in an aloha, Z Kodo. 1940s, that ya Kodo, they has only Babinal, so show in a G, so in the diet, I don't care Yagi, Yapasa, has not the Ozeto in the diet, and RG. I don't date out a whole just in the 1950s, the Yona whole G, so in the diet, Quaggy. Kayagi is a basa halongo hota e yahon G's nado in the da e ya pain that we asli for Hopi versus what though in the da e ya McDonald versus Hamilton the no hot awu go ya le in the do in the da e ya Babinal sosigi eto da ligo da ya do in the da e ya hashine not the ne e ya chita hito ne sel da e ya kwagi hot a e ya chana is ni khoti de e vil na ji ki e ya ti de District 6 de ya I see or ze arjin hitat do in the e sachiko ado like yasan na ligi e ya share alike to know da e court na na asli ko ishi ado in the e ya chaba sa has do in the HPL so do sa e ya MPL so do in the e ben nation legal go e ya ko the ne hashine launch has nado in the e ya a the and kita hat in the next slide. Next slide, please. Ado in the ya kodo ya nasnana ya kodo timeline zigi 1982 do stand 1962 jo ta ya ho ji ne ko e kwagi ya the kwigoshin ya ke ne ko 1882 ya da edk ya hat asli do in the ya ta sabti istri ya pato hoto ni ACA yati o zeto the neto in the yat shgado hashine nazi istrijin le ishi kaigi ya ke yaki babut at aslin da jo hot in the kaigi baka da ha nado baka kichu ido pe aji just ta any given nash e hot ai ke ya hal ya ne ko executive order jo ta e beti ne ko e adon da hostan hot da shi zon da e healing versus Jones e aji ki ya ba hun o ha ho ji zo in the ya ke ya ki ya kwai ki pe ni ki eske sta ya chos in do le a zo ti da o ze pakat an ki district 6 di nen ki a je ke ha ji ti do le to in the mon ko pi ji to ha shin so go go ya ya so 1957 do 1962 what's the next slide. I don't die who stand out that season. Little in the day, 1972 should be now hold Jesus, needle in the day, quakey. Hashin so go ya quakey, other than now hold us needle in the day, quakey, yes, K other left on not go. So ya McDonald versus Hamilton, the Nigo go RGG ya quakey. Ya the quakey, K ya at least out on either, let's go in the day, ya Navajo Hopi Settlement Act, then for ya konetas ni do in the ya public law 93.531 do in the ya public law 603 aji is do eta ya ni do in the do in the penlache D Hamilton versus McDonald gi aji ki ya district 6 ai ta e hashin sogobe ya ni do in the ya aj ye na hona aniki 1972 ya ta ya ti the Babinal so sigi at in the e photo lingo ila ben nache hui la ki ya ti chelet tendo chela si ya ba na hota khedo in ta gi to gi ba hat tan gi ben na ya kodo ya ti na kloshgi is khona she kodo ni livestock reduction hot a gi la sli hot zan te adon da bebenal so si gi to na has la ta dish and aden de ja and a hot a ya hot a bis khazan le ko Latina, Go Honzago, Yakwagi, als Honahas, Ladonald, Closhaden, Najutalia, Port Oregon, Hona Anna down, she is a hot, Ada, the door, listen there. Na Kigunati, Digi, McDonald versus Hamilton, Yadid, so Yakwagi, so the Hotato, Nisto in the day, Quagi, Yanana, let's be Kedo,
interim permits with the not temporary permits with the now ya the not on change which honata ya ya kwaiki be a husband when ya kwaiki yana in nito leto in the day hashin so able that each other ya ben has alcohol jin leko ado in the day that court order ki in ne ko livestock ki ya tendo le the Babylon source as nas ni ogo in the day na los bukaj na to le to ni de to eat to hui ya da to an hili hon no hon za go hol ji an hini znit do le ne ge go ta hol ji shin le ko next slide please ado in the day dini bahas the interim permit sigi AJ 1973 1978 ya kai on shanja shata khati and the 1155 ado lech edit next slide please ado in the day ya the public law 93/531 the shiniki ajiki ya kai yadi hashin sogogo yadi the kwagi chida di yon nesto in the day aj or zeban that ado in the kujit neslaje ba that ado in the day ya ada in the day hosne ji in nesto le chot agogo yashtan hota shijin le ko ya kodo American Indian Agricultural Resource Management Act joislin ko epe has ani it and ko he kaya lady had that agi bakaji ko agi hat ishini himana hasam bakaja hadonigi potential ido ihigi kelni tapigi stole hibe na sheta na idol tehigi don dai adol at in the ya ba khaya do le don dai Washington Diego that they have the trust responsibility to protect, conserve, utilize, manage Indian agricultural land. Next slide. Next one. Ado in the yati 2003, 2006 aji in the yakoto, but that season ko yati be has ani indoor nito hadator nito in the ya. They cannot get Congress ya get not sling or go in the day yat ado leverage that on this a Hopi Land Commission bani yan there to in the Dutch at the Leo Hashins and a 2003 Abachinki ya Quaggy Washington go in the Clayton Kodo Department of Justice to in the Legislative Council legally insufficient need adigi yatik at home need niho ya on his own and dot aso do be not to later even in yakodo but say ya nadi aso in the kodo in the resource committee at ya 2003 at the Department of Agriculture but what did nito in the again dot listo in the ya at the door little hodo need oh ye public hearings behind that state though in the day and yet cut all days and legal solicitors keep bestowing the Department of Agriculture. I mean Department of Justice there agati ahin leniki lai kate hatahadol sats nido in the day ya be yats like he need they 2005 and aji in the day ya baseball on but not ado in the day ya adi ya not dust do in the kade ya jobi la ko kade bit Lego Washington in 2006 and ya 25 CFR 161 was published as a final rule adi in the has on ya ya do stand that season I don't know that ya kwaiki. So that sa kwaiki ya beyond is so ya eligibility criteria. Akodi hat yagi ya kwaiki ya yisiba hot ijo hot out yagi hot as liko. Hashine na ke da hasni ko ya to ba hot ita to ya aje na so bandol sosta. Eben in yat an here at say quaggy other to 50 the ones 25 CFR 161 400 in the day eligibility criteria other 180 days and the quaggy ya ndo kashoto neko ya at intergovernmental relations with the nikadedi shena wikiyat kijobadi nen neko ajabachi it do in the day IGR 355 3 or 6 AD ado in the ya kwaiki
yatik at ya bekeda hastidi ki ba hot ogo to ad belek endol gecho hot zan leko adon dai hoste nas nana in the no that season leko AIGRJ in 11010 but the neko aje the 2003 at na ya Washington which holia adon dait osa at a proposed eligibility criteria you sneak go hot it also ago hahorjis nido in the area resource committees ARGG in the area to zagit o hot edo Washington do ya to titalako kat ya needed need that was your IGRJ in 11010 proposed cards on the hagin kat ya judo baha zita do Washington gi kat hot ya to le ko ada koko ya probate snigo go ta hot ago go ya abasta halon ne ko be ke hasti do go do na ni so do do ni go ya go she khit ya de ya khwel te pa hun ti do le cho hot an ne ko do ne dai do hot abasta hot da shi do in da hot nas na in da ya aj but ya kwa 2016 at da ya di the range unit sigi hashin so go ya at that those were again proposed range unit boundaries based on watersheds. Ajiki adon da ya, but not asli do in the ya the never Washington do based on anan liniki do na wiki yatki ita ya ye na asli asli ko hot ago pipkina hol jis ARJ Yakaya that again 912,220 acres. Honed la ARJ 51 range units. Neko Ado Neta precincts precincts 1, 2, and 3. Western Chinle and Fort Defiance Agency. Ajiki Hota Aya Paski Nelsalido in the Hostan Nana 2016 ta in the sato yatiton hisokot da adi da sagito in the kweki realignment nahoto need that there was your legislation 036116 RGK yati the koto the never Washington Beshbahasa anan linigi yakiyenta chapter do chimbi to chapter RGK yanda ido le tohit ke yaki archon ido le Hit I but haki neke hat idol hit ya bebenal so sigi ad bahun idol this gene at all is other yanan datan lego. In Nasna ho dash jizo in the day ya RDCF 20-17. Nabadi nen lego resource development committee gia AIGR 11010 gia ya non is cause ad. Ad in the day became the hostility airship what ago ya alias ni agiki. Yat abat say the Naira, but the no Navajo Rangeland Improvement Act, the Kato, Asalido in the it's the Nago Bahuin final public hearing is lean late the Nate College, the in the da Yaginia Pihato, Ade Gido MPL, GK, Pape Nato, those are the current eligibility requirements. Number 6 is osli aj ebike hasti do in the day adole na sosgid at in the yaski nan te go epa hot is a little area because ani bebana sos which one do nicho hot ago go yas case and mentally aj that was your RDCF 20-17 ajiki with is case and mentally go ado in the day hostan nana 2018 at in the day yati the RDCMA-27-118 AGG yati kwaigi in the ya ni kodo not nisli do le so godik at the state kihigi aj to in the day beke the hastidi to in the day hashit asabana hon yogo to ab gatachel ad and lay the carrying capacity that yagi up and not in the day koto chanana yasli do in the hot out yahat do le is not a big cargo only na sen nato hoste natas ni do in the ya tahotan ni in the ab gatole Harden is not in double slatin is that hati in it our epic has unleko hard she is Kangushi Aj Yapat or Tacho and Neko. Does that a Yahagon, then in is not quite the Bay Kahogo, Bay Hahodol, just joy be last, need on the A. Bechita Mr. Nido in the A need go non in the legislation number 0199-22. ARG Yati say that quite 10 sheep in Sikia in Hardol to in the A but not quite ya ashlatin quite yabaka or the A but when that was Nicho hot ago ya the nanal souls the Kotik by Yale kitten the quite Assad is not in Assad the millions of Assad is not in Ashlatin quite only got Yaigi 60% of those grazing permits are not even at 50 sheep units. Ya de hot I which Hondo Saashla the Bakagon and the Hasna, Saan is Nabakawan and the Hasna, 15 the Bakao, the Hot I to Lingo da Yas Ligo, a case Ago go ya, Hadahinas, the escape that one at no after the Joe Hot and Lego, Dick at the Sagi art in the Jato. The Tohone Lata Belit and then the hot outchin, those nature to Nenahadan for Ajiki. Ado in the day, about 358, 50 dot taco. They 99, when they la, which is about 30% of the 1,155. Ashot, Azata, Bakao, go, but it's not all legal, Ado in the yan Assad is not tindo, but Laco Honel, Taki Assad is not tindo, but Kodago, Honel, Belinda, Kego Hol Jin, Lena, or Ligo, Yaj. Ado in the yat Anes, Nanaki, ya, not kitten is not tindo, Slatindo, Taco, Catindo, say, Slatin Argent, Ago, ya. Anes none go hot ago go but not only go that yas ni jo hot end the 10 sheep units but the Niniki ya at a hata hinas they dodge the na also they do in the to yiki had no go at a honzago that was in the sheep jo hot and neko ago go ya kodo ado lagi this shine is nan kodo in the ya kodo in the ya bekeda has the to in the ya kodo and the state ki ya first phase job the nan ko first process but ka ko gi is that in kombe ki has nas le ko Washington but that in le ko aji ki 28 nes nigit in a do in the ya crash that in a ta ya and the state ki hobe nas legi and his another is stays the ya about 16 that's a quake ARG Gia Vikeda has Nidigido Ado in Yahadi Plagia, they fall under airship. ARG Nana to ARG Yat Atoi not Nitan Neko. As Tago go ya and the state key what end is not the big how edoshes are neither. Do in the ya to ya big got ARG Ebony na ya. Kad I tap lako na shadow in the Hunzago is for Hash that or nation then he had long neko ya ajit case in that neko. Nana phase 2 second process but the Niniki Ajigin da airship. Although in the resource committee, Hashinet na Ajiki which hota lias nido in the ya Ajiki is Kanin eligible but the Niniki ya 140 when they la ya ba hot in neko under airship. The kid has stayed in the door in the day, but hasn't go quite in none is that in the day, quite by $100 agent. Nana Stachogi, a verification, none is net or the quick wishida, but under has in the enumeration, though in the day, the Kehoja Teniki legislation, but Kagi continuously live on MPL, Jota Yihadat and Neko agent. I could about that with it. I don't phase 3 now, but the third process, but Kagi in the ya Kagi. I had ishiben in Kagi, I don't like about when there's Kagi a other as Jigi Tanatas on the big so in the day, but that was the sheet or the boat and Neko. A hot ago, the airship at the Niki hot hour, ya Aja, Banan Nation Neko. A Kodi Kodo in the ya. Kaya ba Hayanikits da Saena the American Indian Agricultural Resource Management Agabati Nen ko Ajiki Washington da Congress nas things of the 1990s and da yati the Batsi Shbekaya San Ago go ad Bakaji ko Tagi Yapa Hayatole. Atishin Aji Kacha or Stinigi Totayal Tinigi Shinigi Ada Pizze. Hashine not Jadata Kato Hashine not Ke Ades Ago go Ada. The Kake hat in Neko Betocha or in Neko. Enaben Nashin the environmental policy Ada Akiki Ajanana, that's a federal requirement. Ajanana to Eke Yagi Ada Hat Ada Adneho go to Yatika. NTA that was Nisnaskota Shijogo, AI ta ya na southern that Hagi Tota Yaslindo environmental assessments though in the area what I will go EIS to EAs with the no area Bana station little Bana state dota via how she get out of the a cook a chill Baka Loniki Adaba Hayado the forage management. Ado in the range conservation, Aji sto Yakagi, but not in the dollar, Kayagi, Yapa, Hayado, do in the area, Ato Yichiki, Ado in the area, and fashion, it's okay, he not the Kahar, the area, baby, get a wish, Ado, that Pahalodo, the joy of Ago, Bankia, Tiki, and Neko. Even Nash in the area, Conch again, Hato in the area, Con in Nabakas and Lado, the area. Naspol Jishinko. A Kohashine na in the area. Hits Archo was out and Zenko. She Hashine na adenda Kreko. The Bebanal sauce not Nige Sint or Yahas Ada. She edo Bakada to lessons and the Chalanda has neo the in the Tashin Yasni Ada Bahas Adole. Nin leda chute in that. Nikisintal closet dan Nikisintal sponsor da penta will lada da Ashi Yakwaki Asichita English with Agogo ya Adeta Yaslinde Kalidabans and what they castlin. Hashine na yati ada big kashida ego dash chinsadin so that letter. Ndal zit dobit ashen dad data. But Agogo ad has unlink Doba Kagi is gay on the net as link in the one other that is nan nico at the net nico. Though it as Sagoni teen that the crew shiny teen with Ago, children latter for all the story in the shit, edo lesson, but I recognize Boston Nico. Tohashine not be in a hot in Nico. Though in the Tae Yakwagi, public law. 603 be Gunagi in the Yati or Zehtan Adan of what the public law 93.531 Nigia. In the Daesat are the Bogan, this Jida and your life estate with the Neko Ada. The question is another is the Bashina Ada and the Tapogan. Hakoshi and Nashanabat and Kad Eshekit Abanate Indo the Hashita Iban Nahuit Ado the Koto. A coin by Yada Titan, Koti Quagin is not the big Ede Hinajin had an Ajeko. Compliance at the lap on Hatan Neko. What Agogo Yakon, because has unzeko. A Kogodi Quag. The was she adult, Dagi Yakoya Yaskin, Neko, only his shadow, Miss Argent. 1,155 canceled permits with Agogo Essen Neko. About 30% of those accommodations, Ajiki the Tabagan later on the Hopi, the H6 brand I used this in Neko. New lands or such a is not on the Tapishita Baka de so Ado in the AS erroneously cancelled, but in the age at about 47 that's Ajiki Yato Batan and so standard end of Batan and so what leaders the Quagable like Endol, so story in PL Richos, either Ojigo Hos, and Joe Ago, Ya Ajigi, Sabucha Honda, Yasaniko. Saed at Ojigogi, Yachita or Sport and the Jan, what in the NPL, but Kajabo one, though it cancel it, the Ekit opened on Nishkaoya, but on another, so stock Koji, but a Honado, nature opened Bendash, Nation, erroneously cancelled Jobati, then Neko. Ado in the ya state key in the Niki ya 50 jota bahanets in the only about 9%. Sachogi in the ya the airship the Niki etis a bahagi ya aji huta ya aja the Nashita abata with teaching to let's go ko aji. Adana kashida zabe hisan na no sende bulkana kashida zende hajugo wushi no sende kokodo ya kodo ke be kitchen an lenigi shahado leto in the day kodo ni jaha trisni Mr. Leo Watchman do Sherry Castillo in Shen Neko Kim Johnson Neko as a done Neko Natalia Robin Sherman Neko do nana stun Neko Tierra Sam in lejo nana sta so kon he hashin so nikina nishiki adi de land Neko chair. Thank you.
Mr. Castillo, aro the presentation 16 that's ko be education elgo nihich hainji don hitna hasan la so banachi kron chi kesigi kroshin abiki kit election and lenigi honorable members of RDC ako dide ha hut edol to kroshin and an hana ajishin hich ete hodol zin akodo honorable Bigay.
Kudo, I apologize, Chairman, for arriving late. Shkeno Senegi, Kudo, Ki Alan Bigay Jr., but I says Anani, Nanshan Ki Ani, Ada says, Abtani, that's it, other this Chini, that's another. Other Kudo, Low Mountain, Kachiblu Gap, Salana Cottonwood, Nazlini, other mini farms, but I Kudo, chapter Batatasha. Chairman.
Okay, so Telen Haini Hagi Kashekro or J Toro Nehebeshba Hasana Honorable Herman Daniels Jr.
Yeah, Kodota, Mr. Chair, Kodot, Chairman Rick Nance, Kodo, Aranda Kodo, your Vice Chair, Shinkodot, and the Gas, Kodo, Arana Kodo, my colleagues, Kodo, should say, Aranda Kodo, it's a lick. I don't know, it's a care. Yeah. Ado Kodo, Rano Yagi, Yazan Sagodo. It is Saint Laurent, she couldn't kiss or stuck at the Benebi. Ko he had hit a dish in the ball. Ado Penats or there's the store, Ado I see Gagodo. Thank you, my brother Kodo. Ado Kodo, change Gage, Herman Daniels Jr. Ado Adona and Schlenge bet Annie. Nagay Tabit the Skager. Ado Lada bet Annie Keda hat. Ado Ede is a just a care ho. Ado Dashege Kitchini, there's a standard. Dashego, Ado Kushi get I get that. Ado Dashege, Toyet Lini, Nakate Neda, it should say. Ado Dashanaliges Gatzo, what I can get in it or let's be a penny big. Ado Nana could panash to Shige ya or J to Natas on Shat to Hodots a beacon. I see some of my leaders, local leaders, chapter officials, done. Liniki could on Kinas Kago. Yeah, could down. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Akushila here. Ado, Mr. Watchman, does any of your staff have anything to add, sir?
I don't think so, Mr. Chair. I believe we're trying to hurry along, but thank you for just giving the opportunity. I felt that this sort of so we're all speaking from the same page, knowing the history until now. Also, as you may have saw, there were some opportunities we've had and decisions were made, and that's kind of why we're here. But as we make new decisions and provide leadership, at least you have the background to understand where we've come from. And there's been a lot of work on this. It's very it's needed, but it's not done right now. So, Mr. Chair, thank you for having this meeting and also recommendations, but maybe placing some timelines on all of us to try to get somewhere the next step. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Watchman, and thank you for the work that you do with your staff. So we certainly appreciate all the information that's been provided. Ado, dide korob basane kliniki ilche koro the Navajo Washington yanda nashigi ilchen hisn da hadodna.
Adon de tabakere beshbans an kodo ba ado nis na ida dol kil. Ado aran khasho khayge shma neyaten chit. Ado ad khwego dan khawito as khwagi di beshbans an lanego. Doshin do tada don nistande. Beshi a kodo les khala din hide tigi benina e kuyetlan itla. Ado nasko or jisko e yahati adol netigit or she koroban si kesto sad betan hadit ahe sa hatalia koron hinant and lenigi honorable Jimmy Yella here. Arusit silashi gata horora sitahaki e yahasto tato bishop ka a kotishi hot egoshi koroban yet sahni tlido. Eshtash Ashe Koro Land Department, but it ish at Arabakide Navajo Nation Department of Justice Nahan Yahagishinan at all. So Mr. Mike Halona, nan ad
Kehla, Chairman Ado ya nanat Ado. Ano Sonido, da is not Agi. Chairman Resource Development Committee. Another Ado Sechedo, brother. Good to see everybody here. And staff from Department of Ag, Auto community members, chapter officials, da Una has Kala. Akon Hikodo, Kaya. Get est that go Danil on open dead so Kaya Pasa Hadnoni AI you say La Ben dead Nahalan. Ako beni not ya Ojigo ya not so long the Bamno not so long Adnego Hana al Kaho. What ya church inge Kaya hat Soho Hahund Hait Abanson case Ado Ladna for one Benieta Erota ya Kinda Latni Niklo. Beni Nache Qua has it in consent lation. Oh, says Ako. To S in Egg, when it's a boy, Kaya Hagi Hat Zoho, says Ako, says Annie. Says Yat a card that short and son. No, say what I'd never busy date. Ako deep NPL good night or HPL good night, even not so. Sagi in the house, larger hunter. Ako would ne, do that. Let's sort it out. Ako itang at song at tang a shake a yes a zido leg, a shake a yes get or leg. What dot need itang. Ako would a kaya two door into a kaya do is zinc. Kaya not door leg. Ako Bebanon, your jaggy, grazing official. Band off Agi Banilia. Ako when what a one now are the busy. Oh, later I don't like your heart so even yella. Ako could kiddo the needle ego the needle on ya. But for husband, I thought I had the odd. She been in that easy busy at the extra than it's ado naga. Ako she been in nacha ado at ado be yaho no. Then that at naso the sake at this scene the extra ho one need. Never spot a husband. Consent ligi okay lati pebanan tale busy eat or litla. And lady go you know her. Has ada kaya hade shot. Tunzaniot so ado na gadante. Akonde what but kaya pahatot so eat or lit. Ako what aho the hon nitligi yapini na la sa hodlo. Ero hashing it to put on a gad. Edo ta ele do what e ado naga ar be ke ta edo ben nalado it che adon jagatoni ada ho one chegeta. Ha even yakude. Ke keda hinit ende che he even ya ada. Ke ya hat zo. Ke e atishne e hot ahegi de ben de sto hot sa hot loni te hwan ni. Yes. Beninani si di hanit anigi sa hanit sa ikadne ho wanda yoke do ade shagane ta skli don khashin na haskre so hot ado ojo sa cheta has nane ero bech en dahon akat ya to de chichen na ha ben yeba ho ade ba chen hasni on kada alo home side na ta yoke do ta do le relocated your jahaki today ini so hot ebje ba telia since it net ako ya hot abach enda huis sto ho one dash dan so kaya ta yoke ako oda go benat so ta no nigi o ta asla ye ata khata kachen ero tato sin ado ban sa ta case ta ita nasty hot on nikiki nasty hot sin do bat sa ta case ta di honana at the bebanan so she hit on that all ni no kun za ba hol Washington de ebe has on di in she koto ya ta so si gi be landa le ho hot ab ke hon dat no ka chon get no Akotit ato jo has a nata at enahadna. Akot eda at sego na bahazinigi sin keya. Ike mana hasta. Edi de at seban sa ha keso si ya at ensan. Koto si zini. Sa hodat enda to zit ahandet ato dat zenat zita. Ado nat ziheto jo wa nyema bata hilnya. Edo chilna hata hato tlesta. Ako say Bonsi queso. Que ya aquí se bonsi queso. Khalid abad nitla. Khalid Washington he caught or lo cheto litla. Best edo. A joti that or slito it out that ilne. Koda danas kona kota. Accept da hatorni. Patch the zago and detta. Chehot abansis case. On he do late. Ado nastin. Ni na hotlon. Bahazan dik arohot do jo ehegi ya alit etat ya anan asesonsan jo atan adin lin da ka hanel na ala tsa atan pi ga honda nil kada ni zini na chosen ka etot ni tati ni bi ka ho ala tsa atan honel la an lin hodlo la ho ta tsa la ho so ko he kail na geen gaan he do Washington that's it never Washington ni that's a hela ako kon ado legi a job on sita da kezo do ke ya da sil to ato nil son e ban sis case nes nado teko shan le gano no progression nikla nes nado ado at say hot ya o honda na so si be ka the queen not of $15 out of the queen not I go in the $20 so so I thought the whole eight or when they're not on each of the cut just there's how many percent that only has less than 50 animal units 60%. So I thought but la hota is ne. So ya at say that yet or at say that not so stand up a car what that out by ya at a another ya. Ako di ya Washington hit hashint yan sa case and hit on ha the art at Bennett freeze though such an art and happen on this integrated resource management plan at all ni kaya hagil konda tol ka ha jo hato ni a housing koto le that's a deep in nuts and that's a stock quite NPL or HPL that's a stone ha NASCAR environmental leaders and ha ya all that's a thought According so sige what kaya hagi NASCAR and the NASCAR the art that's for NASCAR conservation plan yo yagi what on ha ya gon ta in ha ni na so na ha to tle chon hit ne khailan fa le la ha that space or not ta ho khaila ya ho da le la akwa ba ho not ka lego ata what appropriate said that hot and you need a conservation plan so na Beninani ge ya Washington busy ile ge latte on hibe landa itle hon never Washington je oto hot ya sa hot ro banda di inla hit to ni jo khỏe ge hot cái đó để hot tăng sinh hoạt tổ时间长的hot不可以看对吧呢他hot ya có sao có đi on the district để on the homestead đi rồi đi hay đi on the hatai thì nó hatai rồi cái lần đại lệ là số cái số cái nó ta cái ta hot có hot có nation hot to ni hot abnal số cái betas ne o xin bằng hon to lệ xin not baby cut not teacher. Of course, I think we need to develop a good range management plan using the RMP that has been initiated. Looking at Navajo Nation handling the permitting, upon the enforcement. I think they already brought that up. Appreciate it as Lebanon, I has on it about Lada. I allowed on Lenny that they put out it. Ako don't so on his own not out or late. You put up on state case again. Ako wish they never can't they Jahadro. For NPL had me. Tahay net o yatahan ne. Passing what on English Johnson in London. Ako what le tona had little legend that what high youth like yata has not no. Ako that in the Nishigi surround that to yon that in the eight or hot at all hot son I had. Of course, got the they purpose, but the land date, the whole not so and did on one. It what of course, yeah, long so but any terminus. Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Halona, Koro Land Department, behind GGD. Aro Kashe Yahan Navajo Nation Department of Justice, Shimbahido, Mr. Irvin Chi. Mr. Irvin Chi. I did an on-steam.
Thank you, Ricky. Yeah, I know for committee I appreciate your time. I appreciate you bringing me here, inviting me, and all of that. On a great day, I used to attend RDC meeting though. Resource and Development Committee. So on this issue, this is the first time that I'm meeting. First time I'm here. And I've been listening all this time and all of that. So I work with the Navajo Nation Department of Justice, Aja, Veronica Blackhat, Aja Basnashish. Akoti, Dibanda, Tinigi, I've been involved in this. Anagade, Padina, lay council delegate. They install former district grazing committee members, and then current district grazing committee member, along with the Department of Ag, Leo Daho Ishijo. Ako di nagade hati ni nagade history ni chona sango bayati. So there are a lot of things that happen in the way. Ako nagay at say nagade o bahins tido hat ni grazing permit so cancel dalia. Ado adeshtan new grazing permit reissue in that no a district grazing committee member. We met with them. Asago live on date. The Kayapnas grazing permit canceled that yaho. There were some issues as far as Kayahagi. And they include land, home site, you see that, ahida sto. Didigi, Kayahagi, NPL grazing permit, canceled that, yeah, Ado reissued that on no, so, we met with BIA that ahagi, a kombanda seat in do, it or Kayahagi, hate or how we going to study how a survey is going to be done. They did a fourth survey, fourth study. Other AA to come up with the carrying capacity, the Liedo stocking rate. You call AA Shabanda seat either by a day. Other we got are you Naso lay high grazing permits are canceled. Yado reissuing the Nagi AA decree reissuing the NATO list Bahada Hidots. A core a RGA Kuyoshi Kate Neat A. So the real issue that I see that needs EGA eligibility criteria. We looked over we looked at it and we studied it eligibility criteria a eligible grazing permit the Holana NPL a sheet people that have grazing permit. Ado, the other issue, those who are listed in 1974 and 1974-5, former joint use area enumeration, JAARGEA. We went through that along with also those who are current residents of NPL and those who have customer use area on NPL. Tabaranigi, Kekedahat Tinigi on NPL. Ado under permit reissuance 161400 RJBRA and RJAA by BRA based on priority criteria. Permit reissued to applicants under eligibility criteria may be granted by the BRA based on the criteria.
First criteria go to individual. Currently, the age of 65 or older, and then the next one will go to the individual under age 65. Ako di o babande abikayatel to lay NPL district raising committee members to apia we work also along with the Department of Agriculture. And our position is that Department of Ag, so we more or less coordinated. Though the State Department of Ag, Leo the whole RGEAA, there are a lot of things that we covered and we worked on a lot of things. One of the issues that we also work on was a probate. These grazing permits have been canceled. So how do we go about the probate? The AARGA, we decided to go through with the earship station. No, call AA grazing permit. Lady that they jaha at the we considered a lot of those too. Although the current NPL not so sosigi. So although AABA they did carrying capacity in forge study. I call AA based on the forge and everything, drought and everything. So right now AA 10 sheep units. A 50 sheep units are no. I call BRA that no AA 10 sheep units for now. The Department of Ag AA, the RGA had always zero. So we work with a resource committee, RDC, to AA, based on the BRA's study and everything, called BRA for right now 10 sheep units no Department of Justice, since we work with the Department of Ag, District Grazing Committee, and also BRA, so we stood behind them as far as them stating that 10 sheep units for now. Nasoshin hajo ayat and do not in the handaslido also forged in the handaslido. So we can ask the BIA to either redo the carrying capacity, for studying carrying capacity to raise up the sheep units. KO we're just supporting the Department of Justice, Department of Ag. Thank you.
Mr. Chi, Department of Justice, Don Hilchohin, Anagi, Do, Koro, Itlausen, Nagi. Next, we have Fish and Wildlife. Miss Gloria Tom, you have the floor. Ms. Tom from Fish and Wildlife. Navajo Nation Department of Fish and Wildlife. Department of Fish and Wildlife, Ms. Gloria Tom. We would like to hear your presentation on the drought report. Ms. Carolyn Begay from Fish and Wildlife. Ms. Tom. Department of Fish and Wildlife.
Yes, good morning.
Yes,
Can you hear me?
yes, go ahead.
Yes, good morning, Chairman Nez, members of the Resource and Development Committee. Good morning. This is Gloria Tom. I'm the Department Manager for Fish and Wildlife. And I'm speaking to you from my home in St. Michael's, Arizona. I just returned from a trip to California, and so I'm being a little bit hesitant about approaching my office just yet. I just want to make sure that I'm well enough to go into my office. But thank you for the recognition. I do have a couple of staff online as well. I believe I have Brent Powers, who is the Natural Heritage Program zoologist, and also the Carolyn Begay, who is a wildlife biologist with the administration section of the department. And she is assigned to coordinate with the Bureau of Indian Affairs on the biological clearances, biological review and clearances for the grazing permits. And I just want to say a few words before I turn it over to the Natural Heritage Program staff. And I'm not sure, are we specifically talking about the drought information now? Is that?
Ms. Tom, yes, please.
Okay, thank you, sir. So anyway, as far as a drought study goes, I'm not aware of one. Department of Water Resources might have more specific information on the drought monitoring and drought study. However, several years back, the climate change program within the department hosted a tour of the Navajo Nation with the members of the Resource and Development Committee, along with other DNR departments. Our primary focus during that time was to look at the drought impacts to the land, to the vegetation, and of course to the animals that were on the landscape. And the tour itself started in Western Agency, and over the course of several days ended up in Eastern Agency. And throughout that entire week, we did have the opportunity to visit various communities along with various natural resource project areas, on-the-ground projects that different departments were involved in trying to mitigate or address some of the impacts that we were seeing from the drought. But overall, just a real quick summary of what we saw. The entire vegetation was very very strongly impacted by the lack of water, by the lack of precipitation. The other point that I wanted to make was that the communities that we met with, the individual, whether it was grazing officers, whether it was chapter officials, or whether it was just people that are utilizing the resources, all were of the general consensus that the the impacts that we were seeing were basically inhibiting them from carrying out their normal activities as they related to land uses such as grazing. The majority of the people that we talked to were indicating that they needed to reduce their livestock numbers because there's basically not enough water and not enough vegetation to sustain their current levels. And then that was pretty much the entire message that we received. And it was no different when we visited the Pinon community, where we met with various leaders of the chapter, along with some individuals that were land users in the area. They all expressed the concerns regarding the impacts. And we also during that week, we had an opportunity to visit some areas that we were restoring as far as doing land restoration. If you recall, the committee would recall the Segi Canyon project, where livestock were removed from that canyon area, and very aggressive land manipulation tools were implemented, and reseeding, fencing, and of course removing the feral animals that were in that area and removing the livestock. We saw a tremendous positive response to those land manipulation tools that we utilized in Segi Canyon, and that project is still ongoing. Staff from both Natural Resources and my department and the Bureau of Indian Affairs have been monitoring that project now for a number of years, and we are continuing to do what we need to continue to see that area improve in terms of its vegetation and its water holding capacities. But in all honesty, the precipitation that we have seen from the monsoon season this year has been great. It's been tremendous. We obviously we have some issues with that in terms of the flooding and the inability to hold the water. But all in all, it was good precipitation. It was good for the landscape. However, in the long term, we're still in a dire situation. We don't have the vegetation on the ground to really hold the moisture in the soil in a lot of areas. And of course, the committee saw this, that we're starting to see a transition from in the soils over into sand dunes, and NPL is no exception to this. We have similar concerns about the impacts of drought, the impacts of the feral horses, the impacts of too many livestock being grazed out there. There's all of these compounding factors that are really bringing in the impacts to the land user, and we have not, as a department, been involved in the reissuance of the NPL grazing permits. However, the last clearance that we did was over 10 years ago. And more recently, we have not seen any of those permits come through for our review or our basically asking us, what do you think? We haven't seen any of that. There is a need for continuing studies on the vegetation, continuing studies on the range conditions and the stocking rates. And then, of course, through our natural heritage program, we are monitoring certain rare and sensitive species all across the Navajo Nation, not just in the NPL area. But and we have fairly decent data on the impacts that some of these sensitive species are seeing. But I think the overall message that the department has is that we really need to be reducing our livestock numbers all across the Navajo Nation. And NPL is not an exception to that. We have made recommendations in other districts on the carrying capacity changes that needed to be done to the proposed grazing permits. But it's a very sensitive and difficult issue to contend with. And I think, the majority of that is basically the recommendation based on what we feel as a department that needs to happen in order to address the negative impacts to wildlife habitat, to the range conditions, to the water resources. And it's very difficult. And I know that other DNR departments can agree with me that it's very difficult to just pull one specific natural resource out and talk about it, because everything is connected. And overall, there is a tremendous need for the division to really start focusing on land restoration and start reducing these grazing permit numbers and start applying a lot more remedies to addressing these resources that are in heavy decline. I just wanted to say that, and I want to ask Chairman Nez if it would be okay if I can have the Natural Heritage Program zoologists add to my comments this afternoon, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Tom. Yes, we'll give time to them. So go ahead.
Okay, thank you, sir. I'd like to introduce Brent Powers. Brent is a zoologist with the Natural Heritage Program. Brent?
Lovely. Thank you, Gloria. Good afternoon, council delegates and RDC. Brent Powers, I'm the zoologist here for the Natural Heritage Program. Work as part of a collaborative team with our botanist, Nora, and Carolyn, who I think is also on the call, to review and look at grazing permits. As Gloria had pointed out, the reviews that we kind of do are multifaceted, right? So we consider whatever information is available to us as it relates back to the natural resource that we're interested in managing. And this takes the form principally for us in rare species. So NESL listed species, things like golden eagles, ferruginous hawks, Mesa Verde cactus, so on and so forth. And our primary review considers these species, right? And considers the potential impacts that the grazing permitting and grazing activities may pose to those species. And in some cases, they're minimal. In other cases, they can be kind of extreme. We also consider, to the extent that we can, any information that we can find on vegetation studies, range conditions, drought predictions, kind of where various areas across Navajo Nation are in their drought status, and try to do a more holistic review of these things. We do know that we have incomplete information. There are many areas in Navajo Nation that don't have updated vegetation studies. And so there are limitations that our department faces with trying to make a fair and reasonable assessment of the potential concerns grazing may pose to the environment and to the sustainability of those habitats, not just for rare species, but for continued grazing practices and a traditional way of life, as well as any other number of factors kind of relates in that broader category. So we do our best with what we have when performing reviews for grazing permitting. And I can answer more specific questions if there's any, but or if you'd like me to elaborate on something.
Are you done?
Yes, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Comments.
Ms. Tom, anything else?
No, Chairman. That pretty much concludes our remarks regarding the drought impacts. But again, the clear message that we're seeing is that we really need to address the number of livestock on the landscape, including the number of unpermitted and trespass livestock, as well as the feral horses. That, in our opinion, would be the first step towards looking at land restoration. We're on the call if there are questions related to that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Tom. And thank you, Mr. Powers. Ado shinant no kliniki kodo aske nikhisin da hazna ndla ependo kuchen o kit ngre BIA do Dr. Curley presentation la kodo adon data bekede kodo Department of Agriculture, Mr. Leo Watchman, Arab staff, Mr. Castillo, Koroya Haji, Adon de Bekede Eha Kodo, Mr. Halona, Land Department, Ado Department of Justice there, Mr. Chi, Ado Kade Gloria Tom, Ado Brent Powers, Oliego, Kodo Di Nehekea Hazaj, and the hot igi hadasti and la ako dishi kodo ha kitna has negation and I not kliniki honorable members of RDC klada zuba naidos kito bahachi would like to dismiss for lunch here about 12 o'clock or before 12 o'clock. No lay 1 o'clock. At this time, I'm going to give the floor over to Honorable Kealan Begay Jr.
Chairman, there's several areas Kadosh Kainoshingi Bahatis Helsa Di Koto Bebnal Sauce Tabakagi Dahoto no Punzat the Beholdish to Netatia Yastki Kishi Koto Baba Haitzito Baba Yeltke. Jodi isikinit aniki nde wata joy sa benashipana hotot ilton hajo chachana dit after hotot ni, and I believe the program can I guess they were notified prior, but what I neglect to hear directly from BIA, Department of Agriculture, Land Department, Fish and Wildlife, and DOJ of any current current capacity hohot dato edotade di hahata di Arnold sos diniki sa Hanada hod ya do ABB kodo Arnold sos diniki hita nanil sos shoto tahanida. Ako akwagi gishi bina idishkito la chairman, especially within each of the precinct of 1, 2, and 3. Ako for me, shisazido the range unit number key 402, 404, and 409. To a Blue Gap chapter, Dotlo Mountain chapter, Ajit Tahe Bathatashasha. Ako a Aji specifically, Gishin Hinge Kato list. Shik departments not syndicate specifically to the I need to report this back to the chapter that I represent on these particular area of the current capacity because one area cannot really be reflected on the another area ako wadat hakishi jo pape binashe baban si case kwaki chairman ado the other area kwato a lot of these if you read through the legislation kwato then the other one kwato legislation Kadosh brother Delegate Yellow Hair kwato it was posted the 15th and eligible for action. Eshi wins godats chairman dida the legislation 199-22 akoko AD kodo I did co-sponsor that particular legislation akoko ahod jish anle wata the Hajo Ahos no Kodo Handesh brother at the last minute that's I don't know changed his mind to sponsor this legislation again. Akono wata a legislative council HA haholatik at behas ani dik at ship unit the hando niki AD hahola at ordinate additional bahanas so about almost 2 months through 3 weeks ago that's in the but nonetheless I went ahead and co-sponsored this legislation but the other area his staff the one thing that I also neglect to hear from any of the department is the kwaton la the nebes na has aniki to na has aniki ate ni hiti it a sato khil zeto ti it a sato the nayin hich ha zi to ato ha ni ko this this morning others said that's not the all kwaten the PRA D in Nido Department of the Interior D in Nido o hatnen later hata dash kwatish sanhani ya go spot go did kwakis di hot happen na sha did I because ani ki did ben niya did nishla nikesni go gosh be nachish achish o the neat an hila ehit hot at the nido the nen liniki because aniki be ni ita go do a quacking need zag go la edit la anit ashisha zero dit a hasses to dit be shespahos and johot to ni likich a haisens to don't hit the bishbahs anit liniki 8 and then la the betah need da chapter made in the betah need da the other in his yast be directly from the people, the community member. Ado isiki be nahot to bebeche nahot iki ade yen hiche hanatse o kodo chapter officials nahaz hand grazing officials nahaz but you got to directly hear from the community members as well. Ako shade or grazing officials the ineto the shnida the chapter officials unless through the chapter resolution nana but nonetheless, you hear it differently when you go down directly to the community. And then the other thing that I need to address, Koto Shinanta, we've been to this particular situation. I believe the Koto Shema, the chapter in Hazado Koto in different area of the Zilajin region, Ajiki de Kwigushi Adeni Khe. And every time that we've been there, and then I want to say this on record again, Chairman, we had people pleading with us to say that this is our life. So how much more could the community member express their position and what it means, this particular document? That's it on number the this thing be dahana do lishi that's it quite be not quite do la di koto depend ni what the hoton need what that's about sa case so that's it do na but I believe the community aid I'm sure they're not going to really be maxing out the capacity of the amount, but more of managing it. I think those are some areas I really need to hear directly from a program rather than relying directly to the BIA. But the BIA does say that the recommendation from the Navajo Nation, Washington, the way I'm hearing it and the way I've seen, the way I've heard it is that it's what BIA stands on. That's not really the case. If I need to be corrected, DOJ, then because I know the latest information that was given to the president's office on February 9th, 2022, but that official document only states that 2004 to 2016 and 2017. The area director now the other thing we need to understand, remember this area director didn't even come to our region until recently. Because as you know, the Mr. Pinto that's done that down which what was the prior BIA director, another lady, Eloise, was it Eloise? Another individual, Ada name is Pinto Dahnanes, the air Hashinza, Nanishana, Ada Hostan, the Creek, Shin or Kate and Nesbon. Right now, Mahoja, and I raised that question on the council floor, chairman. Dig at area director, Donabe Hope, Dingu at Aj Dahnanes, Dag, when La Edi, Quati, that agent, Latoyan, and I never got a response. I never got a response as how he was selected on behalf of the Navajo people. So 30 that age a sato at the nakwi the has tango a sato the nap support a do better hose niki ye nach ad dit on hayata a baby nach a baba ad by bahasin ego ad jon is not on the ade, but nonetheless he continues to be the area director now. So akwaki sato it is a chairman. Now the other area, there's quite a few. I stand and I would do what I could, not just out of any but I believe that we really need to listen to the people of what they are asking us to do. I'm sure some other group may want more than that as well. Jut ako sto ada awat zishin da hodlon stonde o tap bebnat so sakata hnes de ta sahnes nothing do not kidnes nothing that tabakan e da han no da bayata ti ade So those are some areas I think the rationale of how is it that we really need to come together and address this particular issue. Now, the recent legislation at 199, 199, 22, Bakaki, the other area that I believe that the council and the RDC, especially the BIA and some of our program, not to say, I mean, I'm not doing that. I'm trying to make a point of some of the things that we really need to consider in our rationale in helping our Navajo people, which is that the three areas where the findings of letter G. If you look on page 4 of 5, letter G, the Navajo Nation law includes the Nebebin has on it, the Nebets on the Bebin has on it, na Sando Yadashkip Bebin has on it, no, to Adam Beha or Ziti at Ben Ildeshi, that's an to this quack. Elahit a Koton hit in the end, Diniki Aj Baby, not Ebe Baban, see case of Koto, Opia 80, Nigo, Koto, Bahatates. How is it that we really need to include the rationale and the consensus or the statement position based on our Navajo culture and tradition? Because I've learned a lot in time where when we go to these communities, Koto, especially in the area, again, not to talk on any of my community, my colleague that lives in an area closer to these metropolitans, Aja, Patnle, Kote Hona Ad, Hatnis, Ad, the Nandiniki, Nan Kado, Nad Loshito, Ado Kayata, that a Yego baby Nanish, Yosiniki, Ad, the Joba, Kunitziniki, Halet Ala Etik, a Kodonidi, we have Siki, Hit Ala A. Epi bandi yago go shohek ni la dis jo bandi ni to jodi epi babik hakoti ni he den jo ni he koto bani ni ani tso ope has ani ki pe ba epi na jo ba ato baby ke hotini anato ato baby na chiti ato baby che na hot koto pe has ani jo ba andi ni jo kwa ki shin da jo ban ye to apa ai yada ya Johnson additional chairman. So ben go dide koto the quick shimpa na dash kitigi to the departments koto la hit koto hajo ba ilya dole. Now the other thing koto one thing koto Mr. Halona behind see we need to prepare in having a lot of these natural resources be in place, and I think we've been doing that every single day. For me, dik at bag at ben and that do we no ba ya de apa hata si zin de arun la beshna pa te thotun linki ad jo pa anda leta no apa hata si zin de. So the notion to say that these aren't ready to be fixed or it's not fixed, we have been saying that to the program. And I have been saying that to the Department of Agriculture. I've been saying that to the water management to say that the Kodoyego, Naho Tiki, Quack, the Naba Chafe, eight Schneego, Kotopa, Hanas, Topa, Yashko, but yet they are there, these are the Jodi, Cheho, the dog, New John Nova Yada, Kunshin, or you not have Tinky Hardashin, need to oh, it's not done, not hard to sheet, oh, it does, ne? And I've been saying that to the area where in my chapter, trying to revise or revive the watershed issue. We need to capture some of those. Army Corps of Engineering, the Navajo Nation, the last one that came over to mini farms, not even only a few from the program came over, not everyone was there. So those are some areas I believe, Chairman, that we need to put those in consideration in getting this done for the community that is here. Legislation 2 days of Sosiki Kodost or my recommendation no I think we really need to get the final answer to be done. So coming Wednesday, it's just a matter for us to make that action based on what we've talked about it today. So ere yakuto akut shisazindo bahasito lila chairman Corbin Nago edik at koto and hitting the hasna based on what I've lined out. I don't know if they're willing to provide a response to me, but more I would say that in writing because I need to share this back with the two chapters that I represent and give that back out to the community members, Chairman. But I'll probably have some follow-up questions to list.
Okay, hakoshila ikeheshitchela kuro bahenjido netis ahagi di tene potego yahadi the bebinal source. It's all bekend that esht isto bech honda liasa neznago akurgo nigo yaha Bureau of Indian Affairs then ahot ego shi yaha zigishi kododo bana kidigishi nata nchat orch aro aret aisenot age BIA aro Department of Agriculture, Land Department, and Department of Justice. Corona ide kitten litigation also respond to the committee in writing as well through email to our advisor. So I'll go to Dr. Curley first, and then Department of Ag, Land Department, and Department of Justice, as well as Fish and Wildlife. Dr. Curley?
Good afternoon, Chairman Nez and members of the Resources Development Committee. I couldn't hear all the questions that was posed by Delegate Begay. Could you repeat those questions so we can respond?
Hakushila Kurolcha show, Honorable Begay. Kuroshinat Odonant Agit Augata Kuron Naidikil, Honorable Begay.
Again, Kodo Shigeno Senegi, out of programs, let me go a little slower then. The question that I have of all the department is that what is the latest capacity report? What is the latest one? And who are these individuals or the program that are doing the studying out there? Report the latest one again, because the only one that I continue to hear, the latest one is 2017, and I specifically want a report for the 402, the 404, and the 409, which is the Blue Gap chapter and the Low Mountain chapter. Now, within these units, I know there's about 1,100 plus grazing permit in each of the area of the NPL chapters. How much are we looking at for my two chapters of how many grazing permits we're talking about? Although the BIA continues, the program continues to reference the BIA. Now, you as being the BIA, there's no definitive statement or policy at the federal level or the interior level that this shall be done, don't need, but more of saying that the BIA is asking in the position to say that this is a recommendation input by the Navajo Nation. So that's not the program BIA and the Department of Interior here na behoba Washington no senigi adadit on hit recommend o se junno e sezigi adan ist a ko ishin quack maybe the three questions directed for BIA bahasit or chairman.
Okay, Honorable Gay Koro Naiden Kirgi. Dr. Curley, your response, sir?
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, not quite. I think the delegate brigade. It's an identity. What is the capacity? Stocking rate or carrying capacity of the initiation. Okay, the latest one. I need in second kid PowerPoint. Okay, 2016 is the latest one. Auto for 2004, auto 1997. Those are the vegetative surveys, the most recent ones that were conducted. It thousand dollars. Call. I wanted to show the screen. Hold on, let me see if I can pull it up. You see the screen?
Yes, we see the screen. Go ahead.
Okay, so these are the ones that were published and they were completed. So if you look at 2016, you have precinct 1 and precinct 3 that was conducted range inventory. Okay, the carrying capacity for 2016 for precinct 1 was 1,528 carrying capacity. Although 2016 precinct 3 816. These are the carrying capacity, but the important thing that I want to bring out is vegetation continues to go down. If you see the studies that were done in 1997, it keeps going down every year. But this year, we were able to get funding to see if we can do an overall study for all of MPL. So that will tell us pounds per acre, the stocking rate, carrying capacity will be determined, but that is currently ongoing. It is only that information and that data probably will not be available until next year after we verify everything. We take a look at the field data and we take a look at the vegetative studies, and if we have questions, it goes back and forth in draft format and we make recommendation. Although at the end in the AIA, we finalize the carrying capacity determination. And need bahan na AIA khade la ilan ga AIA khade la pe has ani nedi lago AIA hutana ta is encho hutana I take it ako the AIA regulation AIA so 25 CFR 161.402, and that's the federal regulation that is required to acquire stocking rate and carrying capacity on MPL lands. In this regulation 161 Navajo Nation Navajo Nation With their RDC Resource Development Committee, not spent of it, don't have it. ADC the epic hour in the lot it is Nishigi Edo Ben Hahod, the Hale 25 CFR 161.402. I couldn't be the car. A cocadeya upon the Jodishne. Take Nanel Kahoch and Nanel Kahanela or the Jota a match Kahanjeko. A quaggy has so hard is this.
Ako
Thank you,
sila
Chair.
kay Dr. Curley Krobahin, sige, Mr. Watchman or Mr. Castillo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe questions were answered and we probably had the same answer. We've been following the same, I guess as mentioned earlier in my presentation, the studies, even though they may be dated back, they are good for 10 years and they follow the CFR. And so, I did make a comment as we're moving forward, that could be utilized, but that's had the sunset. So they only have about 2-3 years left with that use of those studies. And it is a funding issue. All of the studies are done by BIA, however they go about making that. They are currently doing range studies out there. So I think that shows a comparable to what's available. So yes, we are, and that's through a third party, and some is done by staff at BIA. We have gone out there and looked at range units periodic in the past and also worked hand in hand. The other comments were made regarding some of the legislation, how the legislation is being brought forth in the comment period. I guess our comments are going to be forthcoming, referencing the 50 sheep units and how that is developed, how we could support that document if it moves forward. The other question, and just a comment on that 50 sheep unit, the last meeting that was held in Pinyon, I specifically understood the natural resource manager or the regional director to say that they're going to follow federal law. And that would be what is on the books right now, the 10 sheep units. They did not give an indication if the nation passes a recommendation of 50 units. So I guess that's yet to come. So we're also aware of that from the Department of Ag. Thank you.
Thank you. That will be the response from Department of Ag.
I guess that concludes the response, but in terms of what the regional director did say is that they will follow federal law. So that was basically how I understood is they would not raise the sheep unit from 10 to 50, even if it was passed, is how I understood that. I don't know, maybe Dr. Curley could clarify, because I think that's what we're trying to ask here. You know, are you going to take the recommendation from the nation, or because we already had that process that's already was allowed. It was concluded that 10 sheep units is a part of our nation's participation and then reaffirmed by RDC. So Mr. Chair, I just want to clarify. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Freeland.
Chairman, thank you. I'm just listening and learning a lot today. There's a lot of information, and historically going back and just looking at this map that was up earlier and seeing how much, I don't want to call it a freeze, but all the livestock owners that have to have 10 sheep units, they all have to have a tally count conducted, and how long, or periodically, how long do they have to have their tally count submitted? Is it every year? I guess normally, like to keep a grazing permit, you're supposed to submit it every year. Are those tally counts submitted every year by these livestock owner? Just, you know, thinking about history and how much our people in that area have gone through and endured, you know, I think this is a real good time for us, Chairman, to, when we do, and I know we're going back to Washington, And we should put this on our, probably our top 2 agenda items to tell Congress or to tell our senators and our congressional delegation from New Mexico or Arizona or Utah, we need their help at this time. Like Mr. Watchman stated, federal law supersedes tribal law in this case. And it's written black and white in that CFR. And we can get it changed. We can go up there to Washington and tell them, you know, this is what we want to do, or this is our intentions. But we got to get it done soon. And I think when we go to Washington, D.C. again, this is going to be one of our top 2 categories of advocacy and promotion to really get this on their radar and see who will step up at that level to help us. So just a recommendation, Shananta. I really appreciate it. And Honorable Yellow Hair legislation again and co-sponsor Shana Honorable Kiel and Begay Doya. I do support it, and I just want it. I hope we can do it in a correct way too, where everyone is given that opportunity to provide information. Maybe there's permits that there might be permittees that are no longer with us too. Aisha, how are those being handled? Is it probate? You know, we got to get everyone on the same page as well. That way we can move forward and proceed forward again. So those are just my thoughts, Chairman, and recommendation. Although just some, you know, I'm just thinking what Mr. Watchman said, that federal law, I mean, BIA is going to follow federal law, period. That's all it comes down to. And we got to figure out a way to get that federal law changed. And, you know, if it means going to Washington and seeing who's going to help us, who's willing to help us, whether that's Senator Heinrich. So, I mean, Senator Kelly, it would be a good thing for Senator Kelly to take it upon himself right now, especially during election time, and see if he can step up. Or we can ask Senator Romney from Utah to help us too. So have a Republican and a Democrat work together on this possibly. Chairman, thank you.
Honorable Freeland. We did say we're going to take a lunch break. So, but I'd like to give some time to Vice Chair, Honorable Thomas Walker, to introduce himself.
Chairman, other members of the Resource and Development Committee, and other staff, speaker staff, advisor Tahi, the Division Natural Resources and the departments and programs within that division, representatives. There are numerous people to mention, recognize here. Tom Walker, of course, those that are on the call with members of the 24th Navajo Nation Council, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and trustee. Luke chapter 8, it's one of other chapters city chapter and I serve on the Resource and Development Committee. Just to kind of put things into perspective, you saw on the map here earlier, BIA change Kadigi MPL out here, then Ajo Talani Lake, Ajade MPL sa Ibisa, Ado Cameron, Edo, Sapi, Wadoda, na coal mine, Bird Springs Loop, Tulani Lake, Yako. Just to put that into perspective, Ado Nan Andedi Shinago, Mr. Leslie Williams, grazing official, Nakachadleko, Yego, Epiteti, Bandit, Nigi, Oda, Bansidi, Kis, Tassen, the little Bishmas, and the Tingo, Echo. Ado the Neka Hatinigi Aje within MPL, the residences and the livestock owners, Iki Ada Baza, to Ileko, Ako Trado, Dota Konta Git, Eko, Ida Chanchika and all that we do communicate, we do listen and respond to our constituents within HPL, NPL, former Benner Freeze areas and Big Navajo, other off reservation. The Nedza, Ban Sea case in the Kibahza an, they get Uidash Abigitas tea. Cat, Nigi Dotinal Flosh as an Nigi, not Flosh Nadia. I could echo, Nikidio also, I should Avan Sea case Bilash like Ikaho. Kut eko o shangil bahazan do de ado dishia kudos to kudo T. Alan Biggie kudo his advocacy, his representation either ibe bakunitsen akot oyet afatits at o deshni go ya yaki na oka ishin eko ko nichidi odo hot the Nabahati Hiki Hullo. Ako la skinso. Edota Ajonko. Edota Tota. Nihidon Nihido Hullo. So Ako Edo Shangil Bahas and Dotishi. Anil so Bishmas Anit Linigi. Nihidanet Isanil Ako. Dikti Qua has Aniki. Sheep units Bahuint Nigi. I would be asking my leaders to allow me to consult with the MPL residences over in Tulani Lake to have a meaningful dialogue, to understand their challenges, their issues. Ado hatishi la nanz niki babigit dishi Johnson nako katina kaka anat shinanta. Didi kwishin daton ito Atlad Bahada Sitzi, Ako Kado, Jehi Kahat, Uida Bahazan, Odo, Nefigation Nahadon, Tani Kahako, Akot Eko, Ado Aid, the Nebayati, Ado the Nebich Ahyati, not Chigo Haza, promoting the interests of the people, Ado protecting the interests of the people. Ko petaiki kwaet oyo sa panahadan sa sata. Pajo la pane kaitida. Chukaya it asa. Kaya jump kakehuit. Ido trini in the it ape. Ashi pihina. Ashi penditsi. Ashi pe zahat ashi ibishaza. Ado tigink. Ekoto pansakis. Alelek. What ibishaza. Johotado Incheskan Echo. A concedo, what Hashin's as you carefully, Edo, Dait, Sodon, Dait, Edo Trini, Quaggy. There's an ishi, Pahpada, Yagi Bandit, John Hilbeda hasn't. Date not Feda, Schlatna Fada, that's the there's not the best Yakako. Akodo, Johano, Ben Hot, Aniki. Bedil itan sa hot times change, cost of living changes, the value of vehicles change, salaries, wages change, although even the markets, food, meat, beef, that they're all changed. I don't ask how you take in the Atiko, he's up, he's at that by the call. That's a huge change. when this law was made, and they Nasco igi Nasco attest Nasta Bansa, Kisiki Itan Johnson, teaching Quenanico, Nasigo, the neat Ishi Taho, Nanat Echo, Chochoko. So by Yale Chit or I can't eat Lenigi. Not the heavy yashi. Jada, yeah, it's a cotella, Shannon, what I shoot the Kawins, I give what Johanna Art or the clothes state or the a sheen hit the end. Not big for me. A chain of what sonny. Shade that is she doesn't know, but there come. Yeah, Kawins, I get chairman this.
Hakushilan. Yeah. Kro. Your ears, huh? You need some earplugs.
Chairman Ness, auto soap.
Thank you. Kashi updates shouldn't let no senegi here are not gonna hano yahagi o haniki hone seatling ado sayada dos chin leden hemal chaya dilch. I don't know where on has tuya na dilchit ado corona data or single aron that the ashen hibik end your sedo later on ya she peso ten na hibik end is let's get a bigata ashen here that or say la gonna be or tiki hollow holiday hit is the peanas nana go hat nenegi to the hodo links hat nenegi a slatinge satan then a rego sahot out check his store and Kodon hidden Washington yanad nishiki to di hut a kaya to hut anan set niniki kodo ye nishiki and hiltahad naiki ship and nature era hosan go arches charging height of hashed et il nesto hajona bikiatil kitchida hajona bikia sort kito nikidid it eben yakro peshmas anda nahas a cohesion in nature, Koro, Honorable Jimmy Yellow here. Shad Betana Hadit, I Bahateli, Aishin Hate, Beshbahas, Anna E. Leto Lex, a hot ending, the Navajo Washington, Doti, that Sato, BIA, had Neniki, Archie, Hate, Shin Childendex, Kahaki, Dosh, what I take a ship and Nature, Shin Ahosanko, Nature Yat Kito Lex. What up a last seat in the Washington, that Department of Interior, the what ego that and Hikayan, not the nest. Oh, you think na nacha, oh, you sap a lack on hit a better how no that's and hit a don't need a quacky gishi, the bitch or kilshin or let so cadena regot that or Saint Arendo, we're gonna go ahead and break and we'll come back at 1:30. Outside or snake or so Mr. Tahi, if you would let everybody know on there that we're going to lunch break from now till 1:30 and be back at 1:30. Thank you.
Chairman Rick Ness, Delegate Auto Soap.